Dr. Neufeld, thank you so much for being with us today and the past days. Thank you so much for your work, for making us make sense of our children and becoming their answer. I know you changed my life and the way I tackle the subject of childhood, children, attachment, and everything else. And you've changed my personal way of understanding myself and my inner child. So just as a thank you.
Thanks for your words. I'm delighted to be here. And thanks for the invitation to share.
I know there's a lot of things that society and psychology has misunderstood about children and how they develop, and the shift between behavior psychology and developmental psychology. And I was just wondering, because here as parents today, we are so, I'm just going to say, obsessed with making sure our child is securely attached, but in an anxious way, as in we are so, as parents, at least I speak for myself, to make sure, we're doing the right things, we're saying the right things, to make sure that we are, and testing out this attachment. Usually people go to the experiment, the stranger situation where we put the child in a room and there is a parent coming out and a stranger coming in, and then we look at the reaction of the child to determine whether they have a secure attachment or not. I know you have a point of view about that and its limitations or its advantages. How do you see that type of testing out the relationship, and what does it misunderstand about the attachment or the complex of separation?
Well, the strange situation, the research around it certainly revealed how absolutely impactful experiences of separation can be. And when those that are not attached to come into the arena of the child without that home base. But what tends to be eclipsed is that these are dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
As humans, we're preoccupied with traits, with temperament, with personality.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, these are simply dynamics that operate and that can change from time to time. And so dynamics can be grieved. We can recover from them. They're reversible.
Okay.
When we start thinking of a trait like insecure or secure, a type, that can't be grieved.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to think of these things as, after 50 years of being a therapist, it's better to think of these things as dynamics, and they change from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that most 3-year-olds, if they're sensitive at all by 3.5, they will become very insecure just developmentally.
Okay.
Because they realize that bad things can happen.
Right.
To those that they're attached to.
Okay.
If they're not insecure, there is more of a problem. They're in denial and defendedness. And so they are dynamics. The other thing to remember is these early experiences, if they're not recovered from, they're about relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to think they're about us. They're about a relationship. And that's the good news, because every relationship is different.
Right.
And when we get a relationship which we can really lean into somebody's love, oh my goodness, what a difference that makes. And it leads us to have some tears about what may have not have been there before. So it's important for parents to yearn for their child, to be able to take for granted, that the contact and closeness is there, it's safe. That's going to look very different when the child becomes 2. It's going to be about being the same as, not just being with, and the 3-year-old about belonging and mattering to. And they get very put out when they lose a sense of you being able to get to their side. and the 4-year-old wants to be really important to you, to matter to you. So any sign that you don't matter, it changes over time. But also we can see what nature is trying to do. It's trying to send roots down, deep connections down, so they're not so threatened about not being with. They're not so threatened by not being like, and when we're around strangers too much, it doesn't threaten our relationship with those meant to take care of us. So it's a long process. It's a developmental process. Lots of room for recovery, lots of room for getting better, lots of room for tasting of good experiences where we can lean into somebody's love. It really is a story, all of human. The human story of attachment is a story of resilience and recovery. Nature's always yearning for us to be able to rest and relax in the love that somebody has for us.
This also brings hope, right? Because for a parent who maybe realizes that their relationship needs work between the child and the parent, but also brings responsibility, because I believe if you're sure of your child relationship with your child, maybe in time you go sleep on it, and then you realize that being a dynamic, it's a work that we always need to put in, whether they're 2, 5. So attachment doesn't finish at 2.
No, it's very fluid. It doesn't finish. The good news is there's lots of room for repair and recovery. It is about relationship. And it will take that. A very sensitive child, the very fact that they even attach, they can smell that it sets them up for the separation. And so they're insecure because of their intelligence.
Okay.
And another child may be very shy. They're reserved for their people. So strangers affect them significantly. And every child is very different. But the important thing to realize is that the more the child can take for granted that the contact and closeness is safe, in whichever way it's experienced, by the time a child is 5, it should be the sense of warmth, the invitation to exist in one's presence. It's a matter of heart, of giving your hearts to each other. They're full of love and drawing hearts and so on. And that 5-year-old has all kinds of ways of holding on when apart. And so our desire is for them to experience it safe enough for the roots to go very deep. It's like if they experience the safety, the roots go down further, then they will want to be seen from inside out, and not just to be seen on the outside, but seen in the inside, because they go through a time at age 3 and 4 when they realize that not only do they have secrets, they are a secret.
Yep.
And that sets the stage for wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard. And so then it's a whole different way of conveying to them, that I see you. I mean, really see you.
And
I understand you, and I accept what I see. So it's an ongoing process. No one can get it perfect. And it's kind of a dance that you discover. But you want your child as much as possible to take for granted that they're invited to exist in your presence, and that is safe. That isn't going to be taken away.
I have a million questions right now in my head, so many directions. Speaking about repair, can we repair relationship between a mother and a child, or father and a child, or parent at any age, even in adulthood, but like when the child is already a parent and maybe the dynamics were not so good? And how do you see that?
As a parent, the yearning should always be there. Sometimes when it's very difficult, we defend ourselves against the failure because it hurts so much. It is better to come to it with a soft heart, to feel the pain and to feel the sadness. That creates more plasticity, more fluidness to try something else. The yearning must never stop. Can we make somebody believe that our invitation exists for them? No, we can't. Can you control a relationship in that way? That's the point of a relationship. It's out of our control. It takes two. And so it really is, and that's both ways. It's the ways. If you can't, sometimes you can't make a child believe in what you have for them, and that's even harder when a child is very good. If a child believes that, oh, mommy loves me when I'm good, and you try everything, to convey your invitation, even when they've disappointed you, they violated a value, but that child is sticking on to that idea that mommy, daddy love me best when I'm behaved. It's very difficult to convince that child differently, yet we must never stop trying. And so there's never a time to burn the bridge. The good news is that for the most part, they are so hungry for love that
they will accept it.
They will accept it. We can convince them, but we cannot make it happen.
Speaking of independence in children, we have a push of making our children independent of us because we're so afraid of them being dependent on us. And society teaches us that we should have them be comfortable, sleep alone at 1 year old when they're 1 year old, or go on trips, or be able to separate without any kind of... what are we missing when we are pushing so hard on making our children independent, and they're so much pushing back on that?
Well, we've been fed this doctrine in Western society for over 400 years, ever since John Locke, when it was to be the goal of everything. And he was coming out of his own frustrated dependence. When you study the life of John Locke, oh my goodness, he didn't have any safe place to depend. No. And he made independence the goal because he wasn't a developmentalist. He doesn't believe that you automatically desire to walk on your own 2 feet, to make your own decisions, to be at your own steering wheel, to be viable as a separate being when your dependency needs are met. We don't have proper language anymore. We call everything independence instead of self-reliance, being able to do what you want. Our relational needs are our dependency needs for life. That is the meaning of a relational need. That is, that I am looking to the other for an invitation to exist in their presence. That is dependent, for better or for worse, on the other. And that is the reality of it. If it was independence, we wouldn't grieve properly. When it's dependence, either you feel fulfilled, you don't feel fulfilled in self-care. Either you're fulfilled, you rest, you can purr in it, you can lean on it, and the brain says, thank you. Now we can go on to making you, to wanting to dress yourself and wanting to talk on your own and wanting to have your own decisions. Or there's nothing left to do but feel sad about what isn't there. And then the brain says, okay, well, that will do. And we can get on then, because we will stop doing what doesn't work, and some of that energy is freed to be able to get on with you being able to walk on your own 2 feet, think for yourself, make your own decisions. The reality is that dependence is an existential reality. It is there, and by denying it, we have denied our own vulnerability, and we have denied our own fulfillment and our own grieving. And in so doing, we have got stuck in this place of where we resist the vulnerability. To be dependent is a very vulnerable experience. And understandably, we don't like to sit in that vulnerability. Yet without that vulnerability,
We don't have the soft heart.
There's no rest. There's no fulfillment, and there is no grief.
Grief.
And grieving is the back door to development. When I am able to have my sadness about what isn't there for me and the invitation to exist in another's presence, what safety isn't there, I am released from the futile endeavors. My brain again says, thank you very much. Now we can get on with growing you into your full potential.
I love that. I love the take on the questions that developmental psychology asks itself versus behavioral psychology. And I try to get out this message that we've always looked on how to integrate the individual into the society for such a long time, no matter the personal cost. Whereas, how does a developmentalist look at it?
Well, it comes, but it comes later.
Yes.
It comes, but if you don't have the integration within yourself, your own mixed feelings, you won't mix with others. There is a developmental process. It comes in stages. And the issue is that of these potentials. Now, the first of all is the potential for relationship, and that's what nature cares about, is that potential for relationship is fully developed. That enables us to hold on when apart. That answers the biggest question of the brain, is how do we get a sense of togetherness enough that we can get on with the second goal of development, which is to realize one's full potential. Now, a developmentalist is always thinking of the unfolding of potential. Now, it turns out that part of our potential is to get along and to fit into society.
Yeah.
But this is a potential to be realized. And when a child isn't capable of mixed feelings, if they're not saying, part of me feels this way and part of me feels that way, I would really like to play with her, but I don't like it when she bosses me around, then she's incapable of relating to others without there being a loss of her own personhood, or being a person without the loss of relating. So we're pushing this. And a developmentalist believes that, just like recovery, that's a human potential to fit into whatever society is there without the loss of one's own self. Wait for it. Be patient.
And
it will come. Today's preoccupation is to get 2- and 3-year-olds started on the process of getting along and fitting in. Getting along and fitting in is the last stage of development. The last stage. And you're only ready for it when it's not at the loss of your own personhood, when you lose yourself, when you're with others, and it's not at the loss of a sense of the relationships of those who are responsible for you. And so it's not at the loss of those wonderful cascading care relationships, should they be there for you, and it's not at the loss of your own selfhood. That's only when you're ready.
When you're ready. Wonderful. Personally, I got the advice of a therapist. My daughter was around 2.5, and she told me, if your daughter doesn't have her best friend by the time she's 4, she'll never ever be able to fit into society or relate. So you must get her out there and, push her to make friends. And can children truly have friends? Because I know having a friendship needs setting up boundaries, respecting other people's boundaries. So can children truly have friends in that type of a meaning?
No, they can't. And that's a terrible message for today's parents, is they've got to start early on this, because it interferes with the natural process by which they get there. If we take the clues from how our cells develop, how our neurons develop, first of all, there's fusion and then there's separation, the zygote, and then there's the separateness. When they separate, there is a moratorium. Like if you think of the neuron, if those that know their neurophysiology, there's the axon, the dendrites, and so on, okay? Yeah. Is that those are curled up as the nucleuses become separate, interfering with communication between each other until there's no threat to the separateness of the cells. And when there's no threat to the separateness of the cells, only then is the interaction between them. Because if it's premature, it goes back into fusion. You start bringing home your friend's laugh, your friend's taste in clothes, or you start dominating them. And so Jean-Jacques Rousseau, way back in the 1763, in writing, his instructions to Emile, way back there, he got it. He said, the basis of all civilized human interaction, in fact, the spirit of democracy, is that you must be a separate person before you will treat another as a separate person. That is the basis of all healthy interaction, is that you can consider another at the same time as yourself. This is grown, this is developed, and it's homegrown, not schoolgrown. It is homegrown. So we can't be in error if we slow it down. That gives the processes enough chance. And a child must be full of themselves, their own ideas, their own thoughts, before they can interact with another without losing those, or without losing, a sense of their relationships with those who love them. So there is a time and a place, but that time is later than sooner. And we can't err in the direction of giving them lots of room. First of all, to feel our love, to feel secure in the contact and closeness and the invitation to exist, and then to make room for the fruit of it, to be their own person. The rest will come automatically. We needn't worry about this.
I want to change a little bit the optic from, early years to adolescence, because they're pretty misunderstood from my point of view. I'm not there yet, so I don't know. There are parents who believe, they're on their own now, they don't need us anymore, whereas a 2-year-old will scream for you when they need you. The adolescent will actually, through their nature, maybe push back or try to test even more the boundaries without actually, crying for the parent because they need connection. Do they still need us to be there when they're 13, 14, 16, or is our job done?
Do adolescents still need food? Yeah. Do adolescents need care? Absolutely. They need us more than ever. They don't know that they need us, but they need us more than ever. And if they're not feeding at our table for the significance that they're looking for, to matter, to be loved, to have the sense of warmth, the invitation, they'll be looking elsewhere for it. When they're looking elsewhere for it, we'll think, oh, they're independent. No, they've just transferred their dependency. They're not independent. So even if you think in a world long before there was access to peers outside of the context of family, when peers couldn't really replace. If you look to Romeo and Juliet's situation, most parents will know intuitively, oh my goodness, I better keep my relationship with Romeo and Juliet fairly strong, because if they lean on each other too much and they're this, they are going to have their hearts broken because everything is with each other. And so the better the Capulets would have been, and the better the etc. of this, the greater chance Romeo and Juliet would have made it. And now we have this understanding intuitively. We know that if all of their attachment valence gets caught up in another relationship, or with a best friend, or with a peer, first of all, they've set themselves up for getting wounded dreadfully. Adolescents need their families more than ever. They need their siblings. They need the context of this to take the weight off. of the peer relationships because they're already at the place where there's this coupling energy. And if they don't have deep relationships, then it's all transferred and it becomes too dangerous. So if that could be true in the classic sense of when the coupling starts, that's even more true when you replace with friends or groups or so on, and you lean on them too much. If you look at this in the physical universe, planets were never meant to revolve around each other. Stars were never meant to revolve around each other. They're meant to be in orbit around a common thing. Now, when the planets are revolving around the sun, they all get along.
Yep.
But if they start revolving around themselves, there would be sure death, as the stars do. So they need us more, not less. They need us more because it begins to occur to them that we could be replaced. Now, the deeper the attachments are, the more it is at the level of the heart and of knowing them from inside out, the more they can dabble, get hurt, get wounded, and land on their feet, because the family is the structure. And of course, there'll be time when they have children, and their families will be very important for them to be able to create the village in which to raise the child. So there is never a time when family is not important. Even in death, our ancestors can still serve us because it's a relationship, for better or for worse. Families are the molecule, so to speak, of the universe. They're what is meant to revolve around each other. Now, does that mean when an adolescent couples that there won't be the sense of replacement? But yes, again, the importance would be to take the weight off of that. The less weight there is on couples to function, the more likely they will make it.
Interesting. How do we keep in contact with adolescents? There is a practice, or sometimes people or parents of adolescents think, how do I get them away from them? How do I stop that link? How do I push those people away in order for my child not to get affected?
You're talking about adolescence?
Yes.
Oh, this is tricky business. Do I accept Juliet into the family, even though I don't think she's good for my Romeo? There's sometimes when, yes, that's what you do, so you're not a competing attachment. Do I bring my friends to Emil to be able to establish connections so they're all revolving around me? I've made those decisions sometimes because I thought, oh my goodness, if I try to keep him away, it's going to make it worse. And so I must incorporate. There's other times when you can go on a timely family holiday or a trip. Don't make it an issue, whatever you do, because we all know, we know what love is about. We know what attachment fairs are about. We all have this. You can't play it directly. You've got to play it indirectly. These are the difficult decisions you make when you decide, I'm your best bet. I'm who you need. You're better off feeding at my table right now. I have the love that can get past the differences and so on. Well, I've got to do that pretty indirectly. I can't just those grab on and hold on this way.
So saying, don't go there, or if you go there, don't come back to me when you've realized what you've done.
Never burn that bridge. No, parenting is forever, and I mean forever. That is death does not stop it. The parent you've been to the child and the relationship, whether they experience an invitation to exist in your presence, will continue to operate in their life, whether you are dead or alive. It doesn't just stop someplace. That is what relationship is. It's wonderful when we can rest in it. And I rest in my fathers and in my mothers, and they both died some time ago. And it's wonderful when you can do this. the only thing, if it's not there, is to grieve it. But the whole idea for a 5-year-old, when they give their heart, if everything unfolds, when you give your heart, it's always with the context of forever. We do it in marriage, even though we know in our heads the likelihood that this is not going to work, we still say it. And when the 5-year-old does, I'm going to marry you and stay with you forever and ever and ever, and that is just what it is. They'll marry everybody in the household, and it doesn't occur to them, but that's what it is. And that's true, because relationship, when somebody dies, the relationships of those that they've cared about doesn't die. It is forever.
That's true. You're a grandfather yourself.
Yes.
And I had last year someone come to me and said, I want to know how I can be a good grandparent. Is there anyone that can give me advice on how to be a good grandparent?
Oh, well, hopefully we can learn the dance quicker when the responsibility is off. It's hard to be a parent because, you don't have any time to grow up. It's just right there, and suddenly, oh my goodness, and you're in the middle of your career, you're in the middle of your potential, and all of these kinds of things. The good thing about being a grandparent is there's a sense that things take time. They'll get toilet trained in time, they'll do this in time, and nothing is so rushed. And you hopefully you've got your priorities right. Is that you realize it's about a relationship, and it's not about achievements, and it's not about accomplishments. But it's a different dance if you still have a good relationship with the parents of your grandchildren, then a lot of that is being able to take the weight off them.
Okay.
Is because the more that you do so, the more that they can rest in your love and your care, the more it cascades, the more generosity goes, the less weight on their marriage relationship. And every couple needs that if they can do this, because the weight is so huge. Very few couples have the village around them. We think of villages around children. It's the couples that need the village around them to feel the safety, to take the weight off. The weight off is way too much on couples today. So there is a lot of work to be done, but hopefully it doesn't feel like work. But what's important to remember is so many of today's grandparents were looking for retirement from parenting responsibilities. And we're looking for a time when they could be with their peers. That's never what nature had in mind. That's peer orientation at the level of the grandparent, the elderly. The elder, the grandparents' role, fulfillment, destiny is in being able to add to the cascading care that their children and grandchildren, and through them their great-grandchildren, will be able to benefit from.
Rest in it. Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for everything. I'll ask you to send a message, whatever you feel from the heart, to our audience that will, be looking at this, and to one idea to share or to take with them for the rest.
Well, I think it really is an issue of gaining our confidence back as parents. Is that we really are our children's best bet. Their best source of mattering, of significance, of the invitation to exist in our presence. And even though we may be wounded and hurting, and we may have suffered trauma, when we think of what the child requires from us, a lot of our healing, a lot of our own recovery is in being able to take the eyes off of us and just step up to be the parent a child needs. And by that I mean not to have to do things perfectly, but to know that when they look in my eyes, do they see that invitation to exist in my presence? Are they confident in the warmth that they feel, and that invitation is not in jeopardy? And I think if we can regain our confidence whether we read books or not, whether we're educated or not, if we can step up to that, our children will benefit immensely from it.